Imagine meeting the woman of your dreams, marrying her, having 2 small children together, 2 boys, and years later your marriage starts to dissolve. She becomes distant. And once you are served with your divorce papers, it's already hard enough. But imagine that same woman not getting her way, and instead of fighting things out in court, instead of dealing with what the judges have ruled upon, she takes matters into her own hands, because what she does is she gets someone in her family to hire a hitman to kill you. This is the tragic tale of Dan Markel. If you've been living under a rock, then you don't know the background behind this story. Dan Markel was a thriving young man that went to Harvard Law School, one of the toughest law schools to get into in the United States, and a super prestigious institution where presidents, even Barack Obama, had graduated from this particular school. Folks that go to this school oftentimes will end up in some of the most top law firms in the United States. Now here, in this particular scenario, Dan graduated from law school. He practiced at a boutique law firm in Washington, D.C., and then, found himself looking for a wifey. He was looking for a wifey, okay? Where did he go? Dan then went on to J-Date, okay? We all know how hard dating is in these days, but J-Date back in the day, back in 2005, 2006, was super poppin' for our brother Dan. What did Dan do? Sets up a profile, and he meets this woman named Wendy. Wendy was also an attorney, so you would think that this is gonna be, a good match, because here's the thing. Attorneys are assholes. We pick things apart. We are trained to think differently. Sometimes people will tell you that we're just insufferable, right? So these 2 insufferable people found each other. So they meet each other, they start dating, they get married. But during the wedding process, and brothers, this is why you need to pay attention to this. During the wedding process and planning for the wedding, you start to see the families come together. We start to see that Dan's side of the family, who I believe is from Toronto, from Canada. And then you start to see Wendy's family originating from Miami with dentists and doctors and prestigious family over there, all types of things happening. You bring these 2 families together and they don't get along like that. So we know that these families didn't really get along from the beginning. So you have that scenario. Now, the marriage starts and Dan and Wendy live in Tallahassee because Dan got a job as a law professor at the University of Florida in Tallahassee. This is huge. Dan is teaching future lawyers how to argue, how to IRAC, how to defend their clients zealously, no matter what side they're on. And as a former law student, I really appreciated every law professor that I had. And some of the clips that we can find of Dan teaching, it shows that he was actually a compassionate professor that really wanted his students to succeed. This job was really important for Dan to have. What did that require? That required that the family stay in Tallahassee so he can have this job. What did Wendy do? She started festering because her mother was pressuring her to bring the 2 boys to be closer to home. Her side of the family wanted these kids closer to home in Miami, which is a 7-hour drive from Tallahassee, Florida, right? Florida is the panhandle state. There's a lot of weird people in Florida. It's one of the biggest states in the United States. So yes, a drive could be 7 hours. So we have a 7-hour distance. Wendy is starting to feel secluded. Wendy is starting to fester, and instead of talking to her husband and working through these issues, he's got this prestigious job, he's doing the right thing, he's taking care of his family. She starts to feel alienated from her family. What does that mean? Wendy went on to express these feelings that she's been having in a podcast. Wendy started to develop a book, and this is a woman that is an attorney. She's smart. Her mind has been wandering. You put a smart person in a room for like 10 minutes and they're festering on something, you can start to see the cringiness and how it begins to get dark So Wendy starts feeling a certain type of way. And this is a good man. This is a good dad. After all these things happen, Dan suspects that she's unhappy. He's talking to his friends about this particular issue, and he suspects that she may want a divorce. So he knew it was not a surprise. One day, Dan comes home, looks for his 2 boys, and when he comes home to an empty house. Every single room is empty, but the marital bedroom. Dan walks into the home. He opens the marital bedroom door, the same place where he had slept with his wife for years. You know, good things happen in the bedroom, right? Goes into the bedroom where these good memories are, where these healthy memories are, maybe where some arguments took place. And do you know what he finds on the bed? He finds divorce papers filed by his wife. Didn't make it past year 7. She wanted to divorce him. So after the divorce was filed, you know, typically what happens is men, oftentimes, statistically, are paying child support and they're paying alimony. These 2 payments are very expensive for someone to maintain. On a law professor's salary, he was more than willing and more than able to make those payments. However, one of the third things that often happens in separation agreements like this or divorce decrees is split time of custody with the children. So you have 2 boys. This was a good father that wanted to spend time with his boys. What did Wendy do? She went to court and she asked, because remember guys, you have the podcast and the book, she asked if she could have permission to have full custody or at least move the children from Tallahassee to Miami. Because if you remember, this is why she was unhappy. The court ruled no. She was not allowed to do this because it would cause an unfair interference with the father's ability to parent his children. This, dear viewers, where the plot thickens. Instead of Wendy accepting what the American justice system deemed as an order, Wendy spoke to her family, who was well off. Her father was a dentist. She had 2 brothers. Her oldest brother was a dentist, super successful. Her mother wanted these children closer to her. With that being said, the family's discussing this sometimes individually, sometimes as a family. It seems that her father was a little bit more closed off from the situation, but her mother and brothers were involved. Wendy talked about this situation. Her oldest brother decides to put a hit out on Dan for being a good dad, for wanting to stay where he was close to work. Dan! The brother did this. That brother is Charles Adelson. Let's just call him Charlie. Charlie was recently convicted in the 3rd trial regarding this matter for 1st-degree murder and conspiracy for murder after this custody fight. Charlie had no connection to this at all. This is your sister. What did Charlie do? Charlie ended up calling a friend. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, hey friend, girlfriend. Charlie was dating a woman that had a baby daddy or some shenanigans like this, and she was involved with the guys that were involved with the Latin Kings, and there were 3 people that were involved in this crime. 4. Charlie, the woman, and the woman had 2 guys from Miami. All these people are from Miami. Travel to Tallahassee, shine their guns, load them up. Dan is sitting in the car, and they shot him in broad daylight while he was on the phone, unsuspecting. A father that was doing everything he was supposed to do every day. A father that was taking care of this woman and his children. Why? Because Wendy wanted to move. This is one of the first videos that I will be putting together on this dynamic court series. Not only do we see this trial play out and we talk about real life true crime and real life legal commentary, this is the start of a twisted story on how Dan lost his life for doing the right thing and how privileged people thought that they can get away with murder and hide it. And enlist Latin kings, other people that were so greedy that less than $100,000 split 3 ways was enough to take someone's life. I can't wait to dive into this series with you all. It's gonna be fantastic. You're gonna wanna stay locked in. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe so we can see just how dark it is when it comes to marriage, divorce, and what can happen to men like Dan who are doing the right thing. See you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there. Bye.